Hello and welcome to England Cricket on 99.94 Cricket every day. I am Daniel Norcross from BBC's Test Match Special, from BT Sport, from Wisden Cricket Magazine, from Zero Ducks Given, the podcast that, everyone should be listening to when they're not listening to this, because I am joined, as I always am, I'm delighted to say, by, he's the toppest of notches. He's the puff pastry hangman himself. He's looking bright and perky today with an almost Tintin quiff of the hair, which is lovely to see. The chief cricket writer of the Press Association, none other than Rory Dollard. G'day.
Hi. Hello there, sir. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm practicing Australian because I've got to fly in 2 days. So if every now and then I sort of slip into a bit of vernacular, you'll have to let me go. Now then.
Do you like
England
Australia
cricket on
as a country to visit?
Do I? Yeah, I do quite like it. I mean, they're a bit strangely rules-based, and they've got a thing about crossing the road, which I find very strange. I mean, given that they all think that they're larrikins, and yet at the same time they've got to be given a hand across the road, I do find that rather peculiarly infantile. But it's it's a country of many contrasts, isn't it? And I get to see Western Australia, Tasmania, New South Wales, South Australia, and Victoria. So plenty of variety.
Good on you.
Now then. England Cricket on 99.94. It's your new home for England Cricket content, and we'll be dropping into your podcast feed or on YouTube or indeed the 99.94 app several times every week. So please do rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you for joining Cricket's conversation today. We are going to be looking back at the 7-match, yes, count them all, 7-match T20 series between England and Pakistan, that historic first tour for 17 years. We're going to be trying to establish the style of play that England came up with, and then we're going to say to ourselves, well, if this is the style, this is the way they want to play it, which batters, which bowlers best exemplify and will, in the well-worn and truly horrible phrase, be able to execute that plan. We're allowed a couple of executions, but not too many today, Rory. What the contrast between the two sides, what I'm trying to get at, because it struck me that style is really important in today's T20. And sides play with a style, the clever ones, that suit their resources. Rather than saying, well, this is how T20 is played, we're going to make our players play it. And you've only got to take a look at the batting averages and the bowling averages to realise that England went hard pretty much throughout. There may be an exception we'll come on to in the case of Dawud Malan. The result was that people's averages and weight of runs were lower than Pakistan's, insofar as Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan, I think, scored over 100 runs more than the rest of their team put together. England spread their runs, if you like, all the way through the order. And they also adopted a bowling approach which could sort of be described as, we really want to take wickets, but if we don't, we'll sit in. Which is sort of, it's not a particularly great, not particularly unique approach, but it is an approach. So was that your reading of it? England basically come at you hard all the way down the order, and on the few occasions when they looked vulnerable, it was when the risks all didn't come off, really.
Yeah. I would shift the discussion a little bit in the sense that I'm not sure this is a result of England managing the resources they've got to come up with this approach. I think 5 years ago or 6 years ago, they came up with the approach and they told everyone who was down a level to get up to speed. And I think you're seeing the result of that now. The likes of Harry Brook coming in, and even Livingston to some extent a little while ago. I think people are coming in, Will Jack's a good example. People are coming in now having learned the England style before they got in an England shirt. So I don't think it's just that county cricket has chucked up a load of attacking cricketers and England have picked them. I think England set the bar and asked people to meet it. Pakistan play very sensibly with what they've got, because we have found, not to put too fine a point on it, that their middle order ain't much good, really. They can do bits and pieces, and Asif Ali certainly looks like he's got something about him, but his numbers weren't fantastic. But as soon as Rizwan and Babar got out in that last game, the deciding match in Lahore, it was game over. Everyone knew it. I knew it watching here thousands of miles away. the crowd who looked gutted from over number 2 and gave up the ghost knew it. Pakistan knew it. The bats knew it. Shan Masood batting at number 3 knew it because he didn't try and win the game. Now, if that happens to England, if England lose Hales and Salt or Butler, then Livingston comes for you, or Brook comes for you, or Moyne comes for you. Liam Dawson might even come for you. It is 2 very different styles.
It really is, isn't it? And it was kind of baffling the way Pakistan operated, I felt. But I wondered if part of that was due to the fact that so many runs are scored by Babar and Rizwan. I can't work out which way round the cause and effect is happening, basically, Rory. Is it because Babar and Rizwan are perfectly comfortable being 80 for none off 10 overs, thinking that they can still get to 190, and they've got a slew of really terrific fast bowlers in, Hasnain, Shaheen Afridi, if he gets back on the park, Nazim Shah, similarly, Haris Ralph, fantastic seam bowlers. So they sort of think we don't need to get too many. So we need to make sure we get at least just enough, which sort of justifies the cautious approach. But the result being that their middle order never really gets to bat for any length of time. So they have to tee off. And then, this isn't a Pakistan cricket podcast, but it then did utterly bemuse me. If you're going to play like that, you don't then put Asif Ali in, after you've had an 80-run opening partnership and tell him to tee off. Because, you've got to give yourself a chance to get an enormous number of runs. But, going back to the England style of play, pretty much everybody in that middle order at some point excelled. I saw people saying, well, Phil Salt had a bit of a disappointing time. He did exactly what was asked of him. When he got 8 off 3, that was simply because the third ball he faced, the risk didn't come off.
Yeah.
But, that's what they want him to do, isn't it? And then when it did come off the other day in spectacular fashion, he gets his 80-odd. So, that's obviously the way they're going about it. But where does Dawid Malan fit in this? Is he an anchor? Or is he a biffer that takes a long time to get going? I can't work out quite what Dawid Malan is. And I don't mean by that I think he's a bad fit. Just his I don't understand his style of play by comparison with everyone else's.
I think he can be both. I think if they come across a sticky wicket that is needing a bit more sensibility and a bit more touch and needs somebody to hold an end while people hit around him, that has to be Malan. And I think he can do that. He can bat relatively long as far as T20 cricket goes. But where does he fit in? The answer could be Australia. It could be that this series was just one for him to get miles in the legs, eat some balls, and hang in for Australia. Because with the extra bounce, the way he times the ball, square the wicket behind square, on the offside, the way he pulls, could be that he really comes into his own there, and that's his real job, is to be a potential anchor when they need it. But actually, his strike rates might not be too difficult come Australia, because going back to the idea that he was an away specialist, he was fantastic in South Africa, in Paarl, back home for him, not long ago. And he can, I think he can get away quite nicely. And I think if you were looking at that series in its own bubble, you might wonder, is Malan looking over his shoulder with the hitting power that they've got? I think England have him inked in for Australia, and they think he's pretty safe there.
Well, we're going to come on to the actual composition of the back lineup shortly. Go back to the style with the ball. It seemed pretty clear to me that England want some out-and-out pace. We didn't see Chris Jordan at all, presumably because of injury.
And he wasn't there,
although he was,
So that would rule him out almost entirely.
It does kind of do that. But he has added an extra 4 or 5 miles an hour. You might think, why am I mentioning Jordan? Well, he's being
back
stopped
up
at 90 regularly in the England season. Yep, and that's in large part due to the operation that he had on his shoulder. Mark Wood, they obviously want him in that side because he's only played 2 games. But Chris Wokes was a revelation to me, actually. Again, played 2 games. We'll go into the details of how the bowlers performed. But if you were thinking about the composition of that bowling attack, they want 6 bowlers. What do you think that looks like? Does it look like pretty much every time Moeen and Adil Rashid, and then a couple of bowlers who bat, and then you're allowed a couple of bowlers who don't really bat but are the most effective you've got? And if so, what is that composition?
Yeah, well, I don't want to preempt my 11 here. Don't want to go too far with that. But I think the addition for the first time in ages of Ben Stokes makes things a little easier, because the middle order that they had in Pakistan didn't really offer that extra bowling order, that sort of top four. Ben Stokes is going to slide into the top four as a guy who's happy to bowl whenever you want to throw in the ball. So it kind of settles it. Whether they can easily replace Wood if he's not able to play every game, I really don't know. I mean, we've bracketed Ollie Stone. I know he's not in the squad, has to be said, but we've bracketed Ollie Stone and Gleeson as quick bowlers who are in that bracket. And honestly, they don't touch Wood. They don't come close the way he's bowling at the moment, just in terms of sheer speed. So that's an outlier, really, in the squad. They don't have anything that easily replaces it. But if we're talking about England's bowling methods and plans, they've really lent in hard to the bouncer. And that's not just Mark Wood. That's Sam Curran at his pace. Yeah. That's everyone really has had
David Willey. Even
likes
David,
a bouncer.
Even David Willey was doing it.
Yeah. And Topley can get it through. So they think there's something to be done there. And I think with David Saker is their bowling coach, knowing very, very well about the lay of the land in Australia, that can't have been accidental. They've obviously, I think we're going to see plenty of short stuff from England at the tournament.
And it strikes me that they also want two left armers. So every time they've tried to pick two left armers, they've had sort of permed out of Willey, Curran, Topley, haven't they? And they got Tim Mills as a travelling reserve who sort of gives you the pace option as well. So, look, it's not a revolutionary method, but it's to biff like crazy from 1 to 7 with the possible exception of Dawid Malan. Jury's out on precisely what his role is. And then it's a couple of pacers, a couple of left armers, and a couple of spinners. So with that in mind, we are going to take our first short break. When we come back, we will run the rule over the batters.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
So welcome back to 99.94. We're looking at the T20 series that has just gone by, and having sort of had a little investigation into the style of play that England like to produce, I want to run you down some of these stats from the seven match series. What's almost as interesting is how many matches each player played, I think. Harry Brook played in all 7 games. Ben Duckett played in all 7 games. Dawid Malan played in 6. Phil Salt played in 7. So you take a look at that 4. I'm leaving out Hales just for the moment, although, he's part of the conversation for sure. Harry Brook and Ben Duckett were England's leading run scorers with 238, 233. Malan 174, Phil Salt 167. Pakistan, as we pointed out, Rizwan and Babar Azam right up top, scored plenty more runs than any of those 4 England players. But then there's a massive drop-off to their next leading run scorer, Shan Masood, 156, some of which were scored kind of needlessly in that losing cause in the last game, which kind of bulked up the number of runs he got. Although I think, from a Pakistan point of view, he is a find. He is someone who will slot into that number 3 spot. But for England, Harry Brook now, he's like first name on the team sheet, isn't he? And I don't know what it means for Ben Duckett, what he's done out there. I mean, it doesn't mean that he's going to be playing in the World Cup, but it does mean that they wanted to play him for all 7 games to have a proper look. Yeah,
I mean, Brook has just had a massive coming of age party, hasn't he? Like, he's been on the verge all summer, and he's finally got a little bit of road in front of him, knowing that there were 7 matches potentially to play, and he's made himself utterly integral to the point that he was hitting pace, he was hitting spin, he was hitting offside, he was hitting leg side, he was premeditating, he was switching it up late when the ball was different. And to see the likes of Nasser Hussain on TV call him a dead cert after 10 games, not even that, it was after four games of the series, basically. He said, that's it, well, he has to play in the World Cup. And when you are looking at a middle order that has the likes of Stokes to come back, Livingston locked up, Moeen struggling to get a bat at times, that is a pretty good achievement. And just looking at his numbers, investigating them a little bit more. So there was the 238. He had 3 not outs. Okay, so that's good because he's not always, he's sometimes seeing it through, which at that position is really good. Strike rate 163. So that's higher than everyone, basically. The only one who came close
it was higher than everyone. It's higher than everyone in the series, except Liam Dawson.
Yeah, except Liam Dawson.
We're not counting Dawson because he had one innings. He basically had one over. There was one over, which he hit for 24.
So basically, he's rocked up. He's not just put on runs on the board. He's done it at a quicker rate than anyone, and he's topped the 6 hitting charts with 13 from number 5 in the order. And usually, I think you wouldn't expect the number 5 to be that because you'd think the fielding restrictions and it favours the top order. He just looks like he's made such a home for himself at 5 that it would be crazy for England to not look at him. Duckett did really super well, and they've always been really keen to praise his efforts in this series. He's not going to be part of the World Cup, so that can go on the back burner for a bit. Probably he's more suited to this Pakistan series than maybe he would be to Australia. But listen, we said it before, he's done himself enough good justice that we can be fairly sure we'll see him in an England shirt again in the next few years quite a bit.
I mean, he was quite waspish, wasn't he, at one point? I say waspish, quite wry about how people had said, oh, you thought I couldn't play spin. I mean, it was I don't think he quite understood the nuance of where people were coming from, which was not that he couldn't play spin, but that if you open the batting in the county championship and then your first experience of international cricket is to open the batting in Bangladesh against Mahedi Hassan, it's not really very fair. But yeah, I mean, he swept brilliantly, played the spinners really well. But it was the innovation that he had as well. He looked very comfortable against pace. Let's make no bones about it. There were plenty of balls of spin bowled at him, but actually Pakistan's strength really lies in that lightning pace attack they've got that's also got such fantastic variations, and he stood up really well to that. He had a strike rate of 159.58, which is essentially what Moeen Ali was striking at.
Yeah, and what I noticed about Duckett as well in this series, he started really quickly almost every time. He was so adept at getting a boundary immediately, just about. He really did a good job of when the fall of wicket came, he never allowed that to become a drag. He did really well. I mean, yeah, he's done great. Will Jacks, I thought, by the way, on debut, he only played 2 games, and he's not going to be in the World Cup again, so he's not someone to dwell on massively at this point. But there was nothing I saw in that debut innings that made me think England shouldn't have invested in him as their replacement rather than Hales. I think he would do exactly the same job, perhaps better. And that transition will happen sooner rather than later as well, I think.
Well, that's an interesting one, because I wanted to go on to Hales, because this was sort of billed as his chance to come back and prove his naysayers wrong. Well, he played 6 games out of the 7. He got 130 runs, an average of 21, with a strike rate of 141. So he was doing what England want to do. I mean, it's notable that it's a lower strike rate than Salt. It's a lower strike rate than Duckett and Brooke and Moeen Ali. So in that top order, he's only actually striking moderately faster than Milan at 132. But he was trying to do that job, and he seemed to do it ably enough, but without actually, I say, putting his hand up and saying, this is what you've been missing. I think you'll feel only slightly disappointed. And also, I think it means, as we will come on to at the very end of today, when you come to pick the England World T20 team for the first match, that where I thought before the series, he wasn't a shoo-in for opening the batting with Jos Buttler when Butler's back from injury, but that's why they got him back in.
Yeah.
They got him back in Pakistan, and they'd send him to the World Cup because a World Cup, they want experience there. And I think if you saw that as an audition, I think Phil Salt might have edged it, because it also gives Butler the opportunity not to take the gloves if he doesn't want to.
So with Hales as well, I think what we learned, I'm not saying because he could fly in Australia, I have mentioned in the past that those pitches might give him a little bit more as well. But I think what we learned in this series is that 5 years ago, Jason Roy and Alex Hales did things that other people couldn't do. They were an X factor that couldn't be replicated. And I think we've learned with Salt, with Jax, with a few others, that Hales is, I don't know, kind of in the pack. And listen, people have watched him and watched Roy and learned from them and sort of put them on a pedestal and as the class acts to replicate, but it doesn't mean they haven't caught them up. And I think a few of them have.
Right, we're going to take a break there. It's our final break. When we come back, we're going to run the rule over England's bowlers.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
Welcome back. So, Rory, we've
Yes.
looked at the batters. It's this bowling lineup, and I'm afraid I don't know where I stand on it. I don't quite know precisely what it looks like because it's been so fudgy and messy. It's not that it's performed badly. It's actually performed, I think, a lot better than England have done in the past. Their bowling, especially at the death, has been very vulnerable on occasion, and that's been partly why there's been the expectation they need to score 180 upwards to be in the game, but they've got the batting to do that. What did you make of England's bowling performance?
Pretty good. We didn't. I think we didn't see a first choice attack at any point. They got a little confused at times because of the mixing and matching. There was a point where David Willey played but didn't open the bowling and bowled his overs through the middle, which I thought was really bizarre because I've never considered that David Willey might be a middle over specialist, a la Liam Plunkett, first mention of Plunkett for a while. So I think they did fine. I think it was about managing the overs and not getting anyone too many miles on the legs or anything. So Wood and Wokes getting 2 games apiece was good. Luke Wood did all right and might get another look, but it didn't feel quite as much of a straight up audition. It was more of felt like more of a sort of get through the series and see how you go. And so they did that, but I don't know exactly how much we can learn about Australia from it.
I agree. I mean, just take a look at some of these stats here. England's 2 leading wicket takers are the 2 left-arm all-rounders, Curran and Willey. They don't feel like major wicket-taking threats, frankly. I mean, with a new ball,
Well,
yes.
Willey is, with the new ball.
Willey, yeah. But they're both taken 7 wickets. Curran bowled 23 overs. Willey bowled 22 overs. Curran, fascinatingly to me, an economy rate of 7.47. He has the capacity to bowl truly dreadful balls, but my God, he comes back from them. I mean, a number of times he was hit for 6 and only conceded 1 more run in the over. He's a very, very canny bowler. We've already talked about how he likes to bowl it into the pitch. He likes to bowl shorter balls. But so bear in mind that they each played 6 games and they took 7 wickets apiece. Between Wokes and Wood, they played, in effect, 4 matches. They took 8 wickets for 100 runs, an economy rate between them of about 6.5, better than anybody else on either side in this 7-match series. So what I kind of learned, if you can kind of learn it from such a small sample size in the case of Wokes and Willey, is that they would love to get those guys out there. They want them playing. In which case you've got 2 more seamers, basically, at least one of whom has to be left arm, it seems to me. So where this leaves the likes of, say, Chris Jordan, I'm not quite sure. Can you play Curran and Willey in the same team? Can you play Willey and Topley or Curran and Topley? I don't know. I'm not quite sure if we've established that we can. We have established, I think, over the course of the summer and this 7-match series, that Topley is an enormously handy bowler. 7.75. He's gone 40 bowls in the power play, bowls at the death. And he took crucial wickets. He got that wicket of Barber was an absolute beauty, wasn't it? Was it Barbara or was it Rizwan? It might have been Rizwan.
Rizwan,
It was an absolute. It was
yeah.
Rizwan. It was an absolute beauty in the 7th game. And he has taken wickets regularly throughout the English summer. It was a feature of England's white ball, actually, that Topley was a wicket taker. And it seemed so important to England that he stay fit that he wasn't in the 100. Now, however, I just can't work out how you're going to fit all these quarts into a pint pot.
Yeah. Well, I reckon that it's now fairly clear that Topley has established himself as the number one of the left arm options. So England have tried loads of them recently. They've got left armers all over the shop, and I think Topley is the number one. He's first choice. So, and I think in that first game Afghanistan, I'm not sure, but in general, I think England might end up having used so many left armers and had 3 or 4 on the pitch at any one time. At times, I think England might go down to 1. In the first 11 in the World Cup, and it might be if they go down to 1, it'll be Topley. So
that's harsh on Curran, though, isn't it? I mean, that's another reason why it's harsh. It
is
Curran
harsh, but geez, it's something. If you're filling all those quarts into the pipe pot, something's going to spill out over the top, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I'm not quite sure it should be Curran for the reason that there's so many reasons. I think he's an undervalued player. In his first full season in 2018, he was man of the series, took crucial wickets against India. Ed Smith has written about what he does for other players in the side, how their averages drop as a result of the fact that Curran is there. But also, we haven't talked about the series in the round, and England really should have won that series 6-1. No disrespect to Pakistan, but the two games that they lost by narrow margins, they bowled terrifically, they fielded terrifically, and their high-risk approach up the top of the order came unstuck, and it meant that they were left with a proper tail trying to get them over the line. And, they lost their mind a little bit in that game that Liam Dawson got them near to winning in and they lost. But it meant that they had, what was it? Was it Luke Wood in that game, Ollie Stone and Reece Topley down the bottom of the order? Now, if they're going to have the high-risk approach, they might want to bat a bit deeper. They might want Curran at 8, Woakes at 9, Adil Rashid at 10, and maybe Jordan at 11,
Yeah, that seems a bit conservative in terms of thinking about 10 and 11. 9, anywhere up to 9, I think you can plan for. I think if you're planning to win a game from 10 and 11, you're planning for a miracle, really.
Well, except that a decent 10 and 11 would have got them over the line in both of those games, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but you can't legislate for that.
You can't. But all I'm saying is I'm looking at these games and Sam Curran, England's leading wicket taker and their most economical bowler for anybody who bowled over 10
here's one for
overs.
you. I think if Sam Curran is going to nip into that team, looking at some of the options I've got the 11 scribbled on I was going to say a fag packet. It's a cereal packet, actually.
Okay.
Responsible.
I want to hear this 11 because it's nearly time for that.
Yeah. But I think he might have to be vying for Moeen Ali's slot. Because I think that's in Australia, maybe that's the one that is available. Or it could be Livingston. I don't know. He hasn't played for a while. There's a little bit of lead up time between those two, and they are the ones who float in the order around each other, and they both bowl spin. So I think Curran has to be shouting at Livingston and Moeen for one of those slots. I don't think he's going to get in the outright bowling slots.
Okay. And you've teased me. You've teased me, Rory, because I reckon we've got about another couple of minutes here.
Yeah. Okay.
So
gonna go for
give me your 11. Now, I'm assuming when I set the challenge, this is the 11 for a must-win game. Now, it doesn't have to be the first game.
Yeah,
but
exactly, because
it's a must-win game in the group game.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, and is this, by the way, I flag up the fact there's only one change between what I think is my team and what I think might be their team. So, I would take Phil Salt. I think they might go Hales, but I'm taking Salt. So, I'll take Phil Salt, Joss Butler, captain and keeper. I think he'll certainly keep wicket, regardless of who plays with him. Malan 3, Stokes 4, Harry Brook 5, Livingston and Moeen dovetailing back and forward. Depending right hand, left hand. I've got written down Chris Woakes ahead of Jordan, but I think that'll be really tight. I think Woakes and Jordan are pushing for one slot as well. But I think the fact that Woakes starts really well with the new ball could go in his favour. And then we're having Rashid, Wood, Topley.
Rashid, Wood, Topley. So who are your death bowlers there?
Well, Topley, balls at the end. I think we'll spare Ben Stokes the death bowlers in a tight World T20 match. That doesn't seem very fair.
Mm-hmm.
If Jordan, see, this is the thing. Actually, this is the tension in that last bowling slot that I've got, which is you pick Jordan if you are banking on what you need at the death, and you pick Woakes if you want to hit with the new ball. So that I think there is a trade-off to be had with those two, and you take Jordan or Woakes depending on what you want to do at the end.
Okay, well, I mean, that's incredibly bad luck for Sam Curran. It's incredibly bad luck for David Willey. It's not incredibly bad luck for Luke Wood, but and Richard Gleeson, because I think that they would be expecting when the selector Rory Dollard came to ring them and said, "I'm sorry, lads, this is the team for the first game." But it's tough on Jordan as well, isn't it? And I suppose
I actually had Jordan written down on my serial packet, and I flipped at the last minute. I haven't decided that one. That might have to be a gut feeling call on the morning.
But Topley is your man. He goes in there.
Yeah, I think Topley's in the team, yeah.
I tend to agree, but England will, if that's the case, we've gone from 3 left-arm seamers to 1 in the blink of an eye.
Yep.
Right. I'm not sure that I entirely disagree with you, because I'm not sure how you do fit all these players in. And with Liam Livingstone not having played for quite a bit of time, I would say that is an area of tension, potentially. And indeed with Moeen Ali, because if Livingstone can do a job as a spinner, do you need Livingstone and Moeen and Rashid? That's, I think, where Sam Curran might potentially sneak in. Or indeed another left-arm quick in Timar Mills, depending on the speed of the pitches once you get out there. I mean, I say it's a good headache to have. I sometimes think that is a slightly exaggerated phrase, because really what selectors would love is that they had a fantastic 11 and didn't have to think about 12 and 13, and they knew that they were all going to be fit. Because then life would be very easy and they couldn't be criticised.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, look, team, I don't know when we're going to be back, I'm sorry to say, because fans of England cricket on 99.94, I'm flying to Perth on Wednesday, which is basically 24 hours out of the game. So we're going to attempt to get back before the end of the week. It may be that we have to mix and match people through the course of the next 6 weeks. We don't know. We'll have to work out time zones and see what we can do. Squad rotation. We'll get some fine guests in if necessary. Or one or other of us are just going to be really bleary-eyed every time we do it. So apologies to all of you who will be looking at a particularly exhausted Rory or a particularly exhausted Daniel. Thank you for listening to England Cricket on 99.94 Cricket every day. Please do rate, review and subscribe. You can download the 99.94 app and follow us personally on @Norcross Cricket or at
the RVD, not the wrestling chap, the cricket chap.
The cricket chap. We're going to put our links up for everything we do there on this podcast and beyond. Also, follow our network at 9994DM on social media. Follow for podcasts and commentary from the bat and ball world. Thanks for joining Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. We speak cricket.